I want us to look at something. People they ask the question. They say, why does God allow suffering to take place in the world? Why does He allow the suffering that we see in the world? See in the world, we see all kinds of suffering. There is murder, there's rape, there's poverty. There's war. There's killing. You can think about all the kinds of suffering that we see in the world. So people they ask and say, why does God allow all these things to happen? Why can't He just stop everything, man? If He is all powerful, why can't He just stop all this suffering? Why does He allow it to continue? Why does He allow it to go on and on and on? So for us to get to understand this, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to go back to the book of Genesis. We need to understand, first of all, why God created the universe. Why did He create the world? Why did He create the earth? And number two, what we need to understand is that why did He create man? Why did He create human beings? So the first one, why did God create the universe? Why did He create the earth? So the answer to that question is that God created the universe and He created the earth so that it will be an extension of heaven, and so that it will be a reflection of heaven. In other words, God wanted the physical world to be a reflection of the invisible world, which is heaven. You understand that? And then we jump into, why did He create man? You see, when you read in the book of Genesis, you see the Bible tells us about why God created man, why He created man. You see, we're going to read that to see why God created man. What did God say when He was creating man? The one that we know as Adam, which also applies to every other human being. So we're going to read in the book of Genesis chapter 1. We're going to read verse number 26. It says, "And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let us make them, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." Verse 27 says, "So God created man in His own image. In the image of God created He him, male and female created He them." Verse 28, "And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it." I like that one. "And subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." Wow, this is wonderful. We see why God created man. He created man to have dominion over God's creation. He created man to dominate what God had created. He gave man dominion over all the creatures that God created. God said to man he should subdue the earth. He should subdue the world. You understand that? So God created man to be a king, to dominate, to rule God's creation. Wow, this is beautiful. This is wonderful. So now that we have this background that God created man to dominate everything that God created, so we can now move forward to answer the question, why does God allow suffering to take place in the world? You see, one thing you need to understand. So I want you to look at the example like this. If you are renting a house, if you are a tenant in a house, that house becomes your responsibility. You have to clean it. You have to make sure that everything is okay. You clean it, you put things in order. The landlord, the owner of the house, cannot come into that house and clean it for you. You as a tenant, you're supposed to clean that house. You feel me? You're supposed to clean that house. The landlord cannot clean it for you. So it's the same thing with man and God. God is like a landlord. This earth belonged to him. So he decided to rent it out to man. You see, he decided to give it to man. Man is like a tenant in the world. You understand? So everything that happens in the world, man is responsible for it. We are like tenants. We're supposed to clean everything, we're supposed to put everything in order. So whatever happens to the world, man is responsible for it. So answering that question that says, why does God allow suffering? Why does he allow suffering? The answer to that question is that God does not allow suffering. He is not the one who is allowing suffering. It is man who is allowing suffering to take place in the world, because the world was given to him for him to be in charge. He is the tenant in the earth. So he's supposed to clean it. So the house that you rent, you are the one that cleans it. You're the one that puts everything in order, not the landlord. So man was given dominion on the earth. So he's responsible for everything that happens in the world. Man is the one who creates the suffering in the world. Man is the one who allows the suffering to take place in the world. It is not God who's allowing the suffering to take place in the world. It is man who's allowing the suffering to take place in the world. So it is not God's responsibility. It is man's responsibility to put an end to the suffering that is in the world. God has given man the power to stop the suffering. Man is responsible for everything. If you look around the world, there are a lot of things that man has done in the world because God gave him the power, gave him the authority to do things in the world. We have built impressive buildings, man. We have built a lot of these wonderful roads, wonderful structures, infrastructure. We've built all kinds of mode of transport. Wonderful cars. We've got airplanes. We've got ships. We've got everything that's wonderful that man has done in the world. Why? Because God gave him the power to dominate the world. Men can do this and men can do that. So the suffering that is in the world, man is responsible for it. You understand that? Man is the one that is responsible for it. Man is the one who's allowing it to happen, because man is the one that's creating the suffering in the world. It is not God. So God is not the one who's allowing the suffering to take place. It is man. This is man's world. The keys to the world was given to man. So it is man's responsibility to end the suffering. We're supposed to use our God-given right, God-given power to put to an end the suffering that is in the world, because after all, it is man who creates the suffering. Who's killing another person? It's man. Who's raping another person? It's man. Who's creating poverty? Is man. So if man can create these problems, that means man is supposed to put an end to these problems. God has given him the power to put an end to these problems, because God gave man dominion, like we read book of Genesis chapter 1 from verse 26, that God gave man the power to dominate and to subdue the earth, to be in charge of everything. So man is responsible for everything in this world. The pain and the suffering, man is responsible. Man is the one that's causing pain, so man is the one that's supposed to put the pain to an end. God cannot do that for us as men. Just like your landlord cannot come into your room or to your house and clean it for you. You as a tenant who lives in that place, who rents it out, you are responsible for it. You must clean the floor. It would be a shame to see your landlord coming into your house and clean it. So that's why it looks like as if God is not doing anything. It's not like he's not doing anything, because it is not his responsibility. So if your house is getting dirty, the landlord cannot come and clean it for you, man. So God is not the one who's allowing the suffering to take place in the world. It is man that is allowing the suffering to take place, because man was given the charge of this world. God gave him the charge of this world. He said, dominate this world. He said, subdue this world. Rule over the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, all kinds of creatures. So whatever happens, man is responsible. Man is the one that's allowing the suffering to take place in the world. It is not God. I hope you understand what I've just explained to you, that we as human beings are the ones who are responsible for the suffering in the world. It is our job to put it to an end. We're supposed to use our God-given power, our God-given right to put an end to all the suffering that is in the world. So it is man, because this world was given to us. It was given to man. So man is responsible for everything. Let us not shift the blame or shift the responsibility to God. It is not his responsibility. It is ours. Thank you. I hope you understand what I've just explained to you.